Ambassador Elena Vasquez walked down the long silver hallway of the Galactic Council station. Her boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. Around her, alien beings moved in silence. Some looked like tall gray sticks with too many arms. Others floated like glowing clouds. A few crawled on 6 legs with shells on their backs. None of them looked at her. They never did. Elena had been Earth's voice here for 3 years. 3 long years of fighting for basic rights that other species took for granted. 3 years of being told that humans were too dangerous, too wild, too unpredictable to be trusted. She reached the great round room where the council met. The ceiling stretched high above, covered in lights that looked like stars. Hundreds of seats filled the space in circles. At the center sat the 3 most powerful beings in the galaxy. Counselor Zentari Command looked like a metal statue. Its blue skin had no warmth. Its 4 eyes never blinked. It spoke in a voice that sounded like grinding machines. Counselor Vex Prime was harder to see. It appeared as a shifting cloud of purple light with sparks dancing inside. When it spoke, the words came from everywhere and nowhere. Counselor Crash Unity was the strangest. It looked like one being, but Elena knew it was really thousands of small creatures acting as one mind. Sometimes parts of it would break off and crawl around the room before joining back together. Human representative, Zentari Command said without looking at her. You will listen to new rules for your species. Elena's jaw tightened. They never called her by name. Never asked her opinion. They just gave orders. The Council has decided that humans spread too fast through the galaxy. Vex Prime's voice whispered around the room. You take too many worlds. You ask too many questions. You do not follow rules well enough. Elena stepped forward. Honorable counselors, humans have followed every rule you've given us. We've limited our colonies to 12 systems as ordered. We've submitted all our research for approval. We've done everything you asked. Not enough, Crash Unity buzzed. The sound came from 1,000 tiny mouths. Humans still cause problems. You fight too much. You question authority. You teach your children dangerous ideas about freedom. The word freedom sounded dirty when Crash said it. Zentari Command stood up. Its metal body gleamed under the lights. The Council announces the Humanity Compliance Initiative. New rules begin in 30 days. Elena felt ice in her stomach. What new rules? Humans may only live in 7 systems, not 12, Zentari Command said. Population on each world cannot grow above current numbers. All human ships must carry Council observers. All human children will learn Council-approved lessons only. Elena's hands shook with anger. You're asking us to abandon 5 of our colonies. Families have lived there for generations. Not asking, Vex Prime said. Telling. And the observers on our ships will watch everything, Crash Unity added. They will make sure humans do not develop forbidden technologies or spread dangerous thoughts. Elena looked around the great room. Hundreds of alien representatives sat in their seats. None spoke up for humanity. Most looked bored. A few seemed pleased that humans were being punished. This is wrong, Elena said, raising her voice. We're not criminals. We're not dangerous. We're just different from you. Different is dangerous, Zentari Command said. Young species must learn their place. The galaxy has peace because the Council keeps order. Humans disturb that order. Elena remembered the reports from human colonies. Council enforcers had been showing up more often. They questioned human scientists about their research. They arrested people for teaching their children Earth history. They banned human music and art, calling it aggressive cultural expression. What if we refuse? Elena asked. The 3 counselors looked at each other. Elena couldn't read their expressions, but she felt something cold pass between them. Then, the Council will help humans understand better, Vex Prime said. Sometimes young species need stronger guidance. Elena knew what that meant. She'd read the reports about other species that had needed stronger guidance. Most of them didn't exist anymore. Honorable counselors, Elena said, trying to keep her voice calm. Surely we can find a middle ground. Humans want to work with the council, not against it. Humans want too many things, Crash Unity buzzed. This is why you need guidance. The council knows what is best for all species. Zinthari Command waved its hand. You have 30 days to prepare your people. Council ships will arrive to help with the relocation. Elena wanted to argue more, but she knew it was useless. The council had made its decision. They saw humans as a problem to be solved, not people to be respected. As she turned to leave, Vex Prime spoke again. Human representative. Your people would be wise to accept these changes peacefully. The council does not like to use force, but it will if necessary. Elena walked back down the silver hallway. Her mind raced with everything she needed to do. She had to warn Earth. She had to contact the colonies. She had to find a way to fight this without giving the council an excuse to use their stronger guidance. But as she walked, another thought grew in her mind. The council thought they knew humans. They thought they understood what made humans tick. They saw the arguments, the questions, the refusal to simply obey without thinking, that they didn't understand the most important thing about humans. They didn't understand what happened when you pushed humans too far. Elena reached her small office and sealed the door. She sat at her desk and began typing a message to Earth. As she wrote, she thought about her grandfather's stories of old wars. Stories about what humans did when someone tried to take away their freedom. The council thought they were solving a problem. They didn't realize they were creating a much bigger one. Elena finished her message and sent it through the secure channel to Earth. Then she leaned back in her chair and whispered the words her grandfather used to say. You can push a human only so far. After that, you better run. Outside her window, the stars looked cold and distant. But Elena knew that soon they would see something the galaxy hadn't witnessed in a very long time. They would see what happened when humanity said no. The news spread through human space like wildfire. From Earth to the farthest colonies, people gathered around screens to hear Ambassador Vasquez's message. The words hit like a punch to the stomach. 7 systems only. Population limits. Council observers on every ship. Captain Marcus Chun stood on the bridge of his patrol ship, the Defiance. Around him, his crew watched the broadcast with growing anger. Chen was 42 years old, with gray hair and scars from border conflicts. He'd served humanity for 20 years, always following orders, always keeping the peace. But this was different. Captain, his first officer said quietly. Orders from Fleet Command? Chun looked at the message on his screen. The official orders were simple. Prepare for colony evacuation assistance. Help move people from the 5 systems that humans had to abandon. Do it peacefully. Do it quietly. Sir? His officer asked again. Chun closed the message without answering. Instead, he opened another channel, one that didn't appear in any official records. A coded signal went out to other human patrol ships. Within an hour, responses came back. Short messages that said everything. Defiance, this is Thunder Bay. We stand with you. Defiance, this is New Horizon. Ready for orders. Defiance, this is Iron Will. Humanity first. On the mining colony of New Olympus, Foreman Sarah Kim stood before 200 workers. The mine produced rare metals that powered half the council's technology. For years, humans had dug these metals from the ground, sending them to alien worlds while their own colonies barely had enough energy for basic needs. They want us to leave, Sarah said. Pack up and go to one of their approved worlds. Leave behind everything we've built here. The workers looked angry. These were tough people who had spent their lives digging in dangerous tunnels. They had families here, friends here. New Olympus wasn't just a place they worked. It was home. What do we do? Someone called out. Sarah smiled. but it wasn't a happy smile. "We have a choice. We can pack up and leave like good little children. Or we can show them what happens when you try to push humans around." The workers nodded. They knew what she meant. Over the next few days, strange things began happening on New Olympus. Mining equipment kept breaking down. Computer systems had mysterious glitches. Shipments to Council worlds were delayed by technical problems. The Council observers who came to investigate found nothing wrong. The humans were very helpful, very apologetic. They promised to work harder, to be more careful. But the problems kept happening. On the research station Kepler's Dream, Dr. James Wright made a discovery that changed everything. Wright was a scientist who studied alien cultures and history. He'd spent years reading through old Council records, trying to understand how the galaxy worked out late one night, buried in files that were thousands of years old. He found something terrible. 3 species had vanished from the galaxy in the last 2,000 years. The Council records said they had died out naturally, but Wright found older files, hidden deeper in the archives, thought the Telkari had been too individualistic. The Council had placed them under a compliance program. Within 50 years, their population had dropped from billions to thousands, then to hundreds, then to none. The Valdres had been too aggressive in their territorial expansion. They received the same treatment. The same result. The Nexari had been unable to adapt to galactic civilization. Their worlds were slowly emptied. Their people scattered until they simply disappeared. Wright's hand shook as he read the files. All 3 species had started with the same restrictions now being placed on humanity. Population limits, territory reductions, constant observation. All 3 had gone extinct. Wright copied the files to a secure storage device. This information had to reach Earth. People needed to know what the Council really did to problematic species. But before he could send the message, alarms began ringing through the station. Council enforcement ships had arrived at Haven's Gate Colony. The official reason was a cultural compliance inspection. But Wright knew what that really meant. Haven's Gate was having its yearly festival, celebrating Earth traditions. Families gathered to share stories, sing old songs, and remember where they came from. Children dressed in costumes from Earth history. Adults told tales of great battles and brave explorers. To the Council, this was dangerous propaganda. The enforcement ships landed without asking permission. Gray-skinned Xanthari soldiers marched through the festival grounds. Behind them came floating Council observers, recording everything. All cultural displays must stop. The lead Xanthari announced. Earth historical materials are forbidden. Songs containing aggressive themes are banned. Children will return to their homes for re-education. Families tried to pack up and leave peacefully. But the soldiers began seizing things. Earth flags were torn down. Books of human history were confiscated. A grandmother was arrested for singing a lullaby in an Earth language. That's when things went wrong. Father stepped forward when soldiers tried to take his daughter's Earth history book. "She's just learning about her heritage," he said. A Xanthari soldier struck him with an energy weapon. The man fell, unconscious. His wife screamed and rushed to help him. More soldiers moved in. Within minutes, chaos spread through the festival. Families ran in all directions. Children cried for their parents. Soldiers chased people down, arresting anyone who resisted. The festival grounds became a battleground. When it was over, 300 humans had been arrested. Dozens more were injured. The festival was destroyed, its decorations burning in the night. The images spread through human space faster than any official report. Videos of children being dragged from their parents. Pictures of soldiers destroying Earth artifacts. Audio of families screaming as their loved ones were taken away. Ambassador Vasquez tried one more time to reach the Council. She requested an emergency meeting, bringing proof of what had happened at Haven's Gate. "Honorable councilors," she said, "what happened at Haven's Gate was wrong. These were peaceful families celebrating their culture. No laws were broken. Zenthari Command looked at the images without emotion. Humans were displaying aggressive cultural materials. The enforcement was necessary. They were singing songs and telling stories. Elena said, "Dangerous songs. Dangerous stories," Vex Prime whispered. "Stories that teach humans to value individual freedom over collective order. Songs that celebrate human military victories. This is exactly why humans need guidance." Elena felt something break inside her chest. So teaching our children about their heritage is now illegal? Teaching children to resist authority is illegal, Crash Unity buzzed. Human history is full of such lessons. Elena stared at the three beings who controlled the galaxy. She finally understood something that had been growing in her mind for months. They didn't want to reform humanity. They didn't want to guide humanity. They wanted to erase everything that made humans human. "I see," Elena said quietly. "Good," Zenthari Command said. "Then you understand why the Compliance Initiative must proceed. Humans will learn to accept their place in the galactic order, or they will be helped to understand." Elena nodded and left the chamber. But as she walked away, she activated a small device hidden in her jacket. Her conversation with the Council had been recorded. Every word of their threats had been captured. That night, the recording reached Earth. It reached Captain Chun on his patrol ship. It reached Sarah Kim on New Olympus. It reached Dr. Wright on his research station. It reached millions of humans across the galaxy. And for the first time since joining the galactic community, humanity began to speak with one voice. The voice said, "No." Captain Chun's ship arrived at Haven's Gate 2 hours after the Council ships had left. What he found there would stay with him for the rest of his life. The festival grounds looked like a war zone. Burned decorations lay scattered across the grass. Children's toys were broken and forgotten. Buildings showed scorch marks from energy weapons. But the worst part was the families. Chun walked among them, listening to their stories. Parents who didn't know where their children had been taken. Grandparents beaten for teaching Earth songs. Young people arrested for wearing clothes with Earth symbols. "They said our history was poison," one woman told him, tears in her eyes. "They said teaching our children about Earth would make them dangerous." Chun knelt down next to a little girl who was crying. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. "Where's your daddy?" he asked gently. "The metal people took him," she whispered. "He was telling me a story about brave Earth soldiers. They said it was a bad story." Chun felt something cold and hard settle in his chest. These weren't criminals or rebels. They were families celebrating their heritage. Children learning about where they came from. And the Council had treated them like enemies. Chun sent his report to Fleet Command, but he knew it wouldn't change anything. The official response would be the same as always, regrettable but necessary. Humans must learn to follow galactic law. But Chun also sent another message on the private channel that connected human ship captains across the galaxy. The message was simple. They crossed the line at Haven's Gate. How much more will we take? The responses came quickly. "We're with you, Defiance." "Ready for orders. Just say the word." Ambassador Vasquez tried one more time to make the Council listen to reason. She had Dr. Wright's evidence about the extinct species. She had recordings of the Council's threats. She had video evidence of what really happened at Haven's Gate. She requested an emergency session with the full Council. For once, they agreed to see her. The Great Chamber was packed with representatives from hundreds of species. Vasquez stood at the center, surrounded by aliens who had never cared about human suffering. "Honorable counselors," she began, "I bring evidence of a terrible truth. The Council has not been protecting the galaxy from dangerous species. It has been systematically destroying any species that doesn't fit its vision of order." She activated her projector. Images filled the air above the chamber. Ancient records about the Telkari, Valdris, and Nexari. Species that had once filled star systems, now reduced to footnotes in history books. All 3 species were subjected to compliance programs, just like the one now targeting humanity, Vasquez said. All 3 were told they were too dangerous, too unpredictable. All 3 were gradually restricted until they vanished completely. The chamber was silent. Some representatives looked shocked. Others seemed bored. These records are old and irrelevant, Centauri Command said. Those species failed to adapt to galactic civilization. They chose extinction over evolution. They were murdered. Vasquez shouted. You slowly strangled them to death. We provided guidance, Vex Prime whispered. If they could not accept that guidance, their fate was their own choice. Vasquez played her recording of the Council's conversation. Their cold words about helping humans understand better. Their threats about stronger guidance. Their complete lack of concern for human rights. You're planning the same thing for humanity, she said. You want us to disappear, just like the others. The 3 counselors looked at each other. For a moment, Vasquez hoped she had reached them. Maybe they would see how wrong this was. Then Centauri Command spoke. The Humanity Compliance Initiative will proceed as planned. If humans cannot accept their place in the galactic order, then perhaps they do not belong in the galaxy. The words hit Vasquez like a physical blow. The Council wasn't even pretending anymore. They were openly threatening genocide. Furthermore, Creche Unity buzzed. The timeline will be accelerated. Humans have shown they cannot be trusted with gradual change. Immediate relocation will begin in 7 days. 7 days. Not 30. 7. Human military ships will be impounded to prevent interference, Vex Prime added. Human research facilities will be closed. Any human found outside approved areas will be arrested for galactic security. Vasquez stared at them in disbelief. You're declaring war on an entire species because we won't bow down to you. We are maintaining order, Centauri Command said. Order that has kept the galaxy peaceful for millennia. Humans are a threat to that order. Vasquez looked around the chamber. Hundreds of alien representatives sat in silence. Not one spoke up for humanity. Not one protested this naked aggression. I see, Vasquez said quietly. Then there's nothing more to discuss. She walked out of the chamber for the last time. Behind her, the Council began discussing the details of humanity's destruction as if they were planning a delivery schedule. But as Vasquez left, she wasn't thinking about defeat. She was thinking about a conversation she'd had with Earth's leaders months ago. A conversation about what to do if diplomacy completely failed. A conversation about Protocol 7. 2 days later, the transport ship New Horizon was moving through space, carrying 847 passengers. Most were families being relocated from colonies that humans would have to abandon. Children pressed their faces to the windows, watching stars go by. Parents tried to comfort them with promises that their new homes would be just as good. The ship carried no weapons. Its only cargo was personal belongings and family treasures. Old photographs from Earth, books of human stories, small toys that children couldn't bear to leave behind. Council enforcement ships intercepted the New Horizon in empty space. They demanded to board and search for contraband research materials. Captain Sarah Torres of the New Horizon cooperated fully. She opened all cargo holds. She provided passenger lists and manifests. She answered every question. The Council found nothing illegal. How could they? The passengers were refugees, not rebels. But the enforcement commander, a cold Xanthari named Thack 7, was not satisfied. These humans carried dangerous materials, he declared. Earth cultural items that could spread subversive ideas. Sir, those are just personal belongings, Captain Torres said. Family photos and children's toys. Propaganda tools, Thuk 7 replied. This ship will be destroyed to prevent contamination. You can't, Torres said. There are children on board. Families. Dangerous elements, that must be eliminated. The New Horizon had no weapons, no shields, no way to fight back. Captain Torres sent out a desperate distress call, but no human ships were close enough to help. THAK-7 gave the order to fire. The New Horizon died in silence, taking 847 innocent people with it. Among the dead were 200 children, who had only wanted to keep their teddy bears and storybooks. The news reached human space like a lightning bolt. For the first time in 50 years of galactic membership, the Council had openly murdered human civilians. Men, women, and children, whose only crime was carrying reminders of their home. Captain Chen received the news on his bridge. Around him, his crew stood in shocked silence. "Sir?" His first officer asked quietly. Chen stared at the tactical display showing where the New Horizon had died. 847 lives. Snuffed out because they carried Earth photographs. Then his communications officer spoke up. "Captain, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth. Command frequency. Authorization code. Protocol 7. Chung felt his blood turn to ice. Protocol 7 was the code they all knew, but never expected to hear. It meant that diplomacy had failed completely. It meant that the Council had proven itself to be humanity's enemy. It meant the gloves were coming off. "Put it on speaker," Chun said. Admiral Sarah Morrison's voice filled the bridge. She was the head of Human Fleet Command, a woman who had spent her life serving peace, but was ready for war when peace became impossible. "Attention all human vessels," the Admiral said. "Protocol 7 is now active. Repeat, Protocol 7 is now active. You have your orders. You know what to do." Around the bridge, Chun's crew exchanged looks. They all knew what Protocol 7 meant. For decades, humanity had been preparing for this day. They had hoped it would never come, but the Council had made their choice. They had shown what they really thought of human life. "All hands, general quarters," Chun announced. "Activate hidden systems. Unlock weapon storage. Power up the real engines." Throughout human space, other ships were receiving the same orders. Vessels that the Council thought were simple patrol boats began powering up weapons that shouldn't exist. Cargo ships revealed themselves as disguised warships. Civilian stations activated, defense systems that dwarfed anything in the Council's database. On mining stations and research facilities, humans began uploading files that had been hidden for years. Plans for weapons. Tactical studies of Council forces. Detailed maps of every Council installation in the galaxy. The Council had spent 50 years thinking they understood humanity. They thought they knew what humans were capable of. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Chun looked around, his bridge one last time. His crew was ready. His ship was ready. Across human space, thousands of other ships and stations were ready. The Council wanted to see what happened when you pushed humans too far. They were about to find out. The first sign that something had changed came at the mining station, Titan's Edge. Council enforcers arrived to seize control of the facility, expecting the usual human cooperation. Instead, they found weapons pointing at them. "This is Enforcement Commander Zek-9, the Xanthari leader broadcast. Lower your weapons and submit to Council authority." The human response came from Sarah Kim, the mining foreman who had spent months planning for this moment. "This is Titan's Edge. You are not welcome here. Leave now or face the consequences." The Xanthari commander laughed. "Humans with mining tools think they can threaten Council forces? Prepare for boarding." But when the Council ships moved closer, Titan's Edge revealed its true nature. Hidden panels opened across the station's surface. Weapons that looked like mining lasers powered up, except these lasers could cut through Council ship armor like paper. The first Council ship died in 3 seconds. The second tried to retreat, but found itself surrounded by human vessels that had appeared from nowhere. Ships that the Council sensors had listed as simple cargo haulers now bristled with advanced weapons. How? Zek-9 whispered before his ship joined the wreckage floating around Titan's edge. Across human space, the same scene played out dozens of times. Facilities the Council thought were defenseless revealed hidden weapons. Ships they believed were harmless showed their true power. Captain Chen's Defiance led a squadron toward the detention center where Haven's Gate prisoners were being held. The Council had built the prison in an asteroid field, thinking humans would never risk a rescue in such dangerous space. They were wrong. Human ships moved through the asteroids like dancers. Their pilots had trained for this scenario for years, practicing in Earth's own asteroid belt. What looked impossible to alien eyes was just another training exercise to human crews. The prison's defenses were designed to stop standard Council ships. They weren't designed to stop humans who fought like no one else in the galaxy. Target their communication arrays first, Chun ordered. I want them blind before they know we're here. His weapons officer, a young woman named Lisa Park, smiled as she lined up the shot. With pleasure, Captain. The prison's sensors went dark. Then its weapons. By the time the Council guards realized they were under attack, human boarding parties were already inside, but the humans didn't come in shooting. They moved like ghosts through the corridors, using techniques that no Council military manual had ever described. They hit guards with non-lethal weapons, disabled security systems with computer viruses, and opened cell doors with codes they shouldn't have known. In 30 minutes, the prison was secured. Every human prisoner was free. The Council guards were locked in their own cells, unharmed but humiliated. How did you get those access codes? The prison warden asked as Chun's people led him to a cell. Chun smiled. You think we've been sitting around for 50 years doing nothing? We've been watching you, learning from you, getting ready for the day you showed us who you really are. Across the galaxy, similar operations were succeeding beyond anyone's dreams. Human forces moved with coordination that seemed impossible. They struck at the exact right targets at the exact right times. They used weapons and tactics the Council, military computers couldn't understand. The secret was revealed when Dr. Wright broadcast his evidence to every species in the galaxy. But he didn't just reveal the Council's genocide of previous species. He revealed something else that shocked the galaxy even more. Humanity had known this day would come. From the moment they joined the galactic community, human leaders had seen the Council for what it really was, a system designed to crush any species that didn't fit their narrow definition of civilized. So they had prepared. For 50 years, human scientists had been reverse engineering Council technology and improving it. Every trade mission had been a chance to gather intelligence. Every diplomatic meeting had been an opportunity to map Council installations. Every simple cargo ship had been carrying hidden sensors and recording equipment. The Council thought they were watching humanity. They never realized that humanity was watching them right back. Dr. Wright's broadcast reached species across the galaxy. He showed them the truth about the Tolkari, Valdris, and Nexari. He revealed how the Council slowly strangled any species that dared to think differently. But more importantly, he showed them that the Council was still doing it. Right now. To humanity, the reaction was immediate and devastating to Council authority. On the world of Kepler-7, a species called the Therani had been living under Council restrictions for decades. They were told it was for their own good. They were too aggressive, too territorial. After seeing Wright's evidence, they realized they were just the next species scheduled for extinction. The Therani revolted within hours. Their hidden weapons appeared from nowhere, weapons they had been developing in secret, just like the humans. Within a day, every Council installation on their worlds was under attack. Similar uprisings erupted across the galaxy. Species that had accepted Council rule for centuries suddenly questioned everything they had been told. If the Council had lied about the extinct species, what else had they lied about? The Council's response was swift and brutal. They sent their most powerful warships to crush the rebellions. But they found themselves facing an enemy that fought like nothing they had ever encountered. Humans didn't fight like the Council expected. Council forces were used to formal battles between fleets. Humans used hit-and-run attacks, ambush, and psychological warfare that left Council commanders confused and demoralized. When a Council battle group arrived at the Thyrany homeworld, they found themselves facing not just Thyrany rebels, but human advisors who had somehow appeared overnight. These humans taught the Thyrany tactics that no Council textbook contained. Surround them, then attack from the direction they least expect. Captain Chun advised the Thyrany fleet commander. Make them think about their families back home instead of the battle. Fear is more powerful than any weapon. The Council forces, trained for honorable fleet combat, crumbled under this kind of warfare. Ships surrendered rather than face human-trained boarding parties. Commanders asked for transfers rather than fight an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. But the greatest shock came when Admiral Morrison's task force arrived at Council Prime, the capital station, where the three counselors ruled the galaxy. The station was heavily defended by the best ships in the Council fleet. Energy shields protected it from any conventional attack. Thousands of automated weapons covered every approach. None of that mattered. The human fleet didn't attack the station directly. Instead, they broadcast a message on every communication channel in the galaxy. Citizens of all species, this is Admiral Sarah Morrison of the Human Confederation Fleet. You are about to witness the end of the Council's reign of terror. What you see today will show you that no tyrant is too powerful to fall, no oppressor too strong to defeat. Then the humans began their attack, but it wasn't an attack on the station's weapons or shields. It was an attack on everything the Council represented. Human ships released millions of small drones that didn't carry weapons. Instead, they carried the truth. Every drone contained copies of Dr. Wright's evidence, recordings of the Council's threats, video of the New Horizons destruction, proof of 50 years of Council lies and oppression. The drones spread through the station, uploading their data to every computer system they could find. Within minutes, every being on Council Prime had access to the complete truth about their government. The reaction was immediate. Species that had served the Council for millennia learned that they had been tools of genocide. Council officials discovered that their leaders had been systematically murdering entire civilizations. On the station's main communication center, a young Xanthari technician named Keftu stared at the evidence on his screen. His people had served the Council for 10,000 years. They believed they were protecting galactic peace. Now he saw images of human children being torn from their parents. He read about species that had been slowly murdered for the crime of being different. He watched recordings of the three counselors discussing humanity's destruction, like they were planning a supply delivery. KETH-2 looked around the communication center. Other Xanthari technicians were seeing the same evidence. Their faces showed the same horror he felt. "We've been serving monsters," one of them whispered. "What do we do?" Another asked. KETH-2 made a decision that would change galactic history. He opened a communication channel to the human fleet. "Human ships, this is Council Prime Communication Center. We want to help you. Tell us what you need." Similar messages came from across the station. Council security forces laid down their weapons. Administrative staff opened their databases to human hackers. Even some of the Council's elite guards walked away from their posts. The three counselors found themselves alone in their chamber, watching their empire crumble around them. For the first time in millennia, they felt something they had never experienced before: fear. "How?" Xanthari Command asked, his voice no longer steady. "How did a primitive species do this to us?" Admiral Morrison's voice filled the chamber. "You wanted to know what makes humans dangerous? I'll tell you. We never forget. We never forgive. And we never, ever give up." The Council's greatest weapons had turned against them. Their own people had the Battle of Council Prime lasted only 6 hours. Not because the Council's defenses were weak, but because they had no one left to fight for them. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the human flagship, unbroken, watching as the last Council ship surrendered. Around her, the greatest military force in galactic history was laying down its weapons without firing a shot. Admiral, her communications officer, reported, "We're receiving surrender requests from 17 more battle groups. They're asking for safe passage to their home systems." Morrison nodded. This was exactly what she had hoped for. The humans hadn't come to conquer the galaxy. They had come to free it. "Grant their requests," she said. "All Council forces that surrender will be allowed to return home safely. We're not here to rule them. We're here to give them a choice." In the Council chamber, the three beings who had controlled the galaxy for millennia faced their final defeat. They sat alone in the great room that had once been filled with hundreds of representatives. Now, those representatives had joined the rebellion against their former masters. Captain Chun entered the chamber with a squad of human Marines. But he didn't come as a conqueror. He came as a police officer making an arrest. "Counselor Zentari Command," he said formally. "Counselor Vex Prime. Counselor Kresh Unity. You are under arrest for crimes against sentient life, genocide, murder, systematic oppression of multiple species. You will be given a fair trial according to the laws you yourselves established." Zentari Command looked up at the human captain. For thousands of years, this being had decided the fate of countless worlds. Now it would face judgment for its crimes. "Humans," it said, its voice hollow. "What will you do now? Will you become the new council? Will you rule the galaxy as we did?" Chun looked at the broken alien with something that might have been pity. "No, we're going to do something you never understood. We're going to let everyone choose for themselves." The trials that followed became the most watched event in galactic history. For the first time, the rulers of the galaxy were held accountable for their actions. The evidence was overwhelming. Thousands of years of oppression, dozens of extinct species, countless lives destroyed in the name of order. But the humans insisted on following proper legal procedures. The former counselors were given lawyers. They were allowed to present their defense. They received the fair trials they had never given their victims. Ambassador Vasquez served as the chief prosecutor. She stood before a jury of representatives from every species in the galaxy and presented the evidence that Dr. Reich had uncovered. The defendants claimed they were maintaining peace, she said. But what they really did was create a galaxy of fear. Fear of being different. Fear of asking questions. Fear of standing up for what's right. The defense tried to argue that the Council had prevented galactic war. They claimed their harsh methods were necessary to keep order. Dr. Wright, testifying as the chief witness, demolished this argument. The galaxy wasn't peaceful under the Council. It was paralyzed. Species were too afraid to grow, too scared to explore, too terrified to think new thoughts. That's not peace. That's death. The verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all charges. But what surprised the galaxy was the sentence. The humans didn't execute the former counselors. They didn't torture them or send them to terrible prisons. Instead, they were sentenced to life in comfortable confinement, where they would spend their remaining years learning about the species they had tried to destroy. They would read the histories of the Telkari, Valvris, and Nexari. They would study human culture and art. They would see what the galaxy could become. When people were free to be themselves, some called it mercy. Others called it the cruelest punishment possible, forcing the former tyrants to understand what they had lost. With the Council gone, the galaxy faced a question it hadn't confronted in millennia. What came next? The answer came from an unexpected source. Not from humanity, but from all the species working together. The Constitutional Convention met on a neutral station in empty space. Representatives from hundreds of worlds gathered to create something that had never existed before. A truly democratic galactic government. Ambassador Vasquez served as the convention's chairwoman, but she made sure that every species had an equal voice. The Thyrany, who had been oppressed for centuries, sat next to species that had served the Council faithfully. Former enemies worked together to build a better future. The debates were long and sometimes heated. How do you create laws that work for beings who live underwater and beings who live in gas clouds? How do you balance the needs of hive minds with the rights of individuals? But slowly, carefully, they found answers. The Galactic Confederation that emerged was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Every species governed itself. No one could force their values on anyone else. Technology was shared freely. Trade was voluntary. Exploration was encouraged. Most importantly, there were protections to make sure another council could never arise. No single species could control more than a small fraction of government positions. No military force could be used against peaceful populations. No culture could be banned or suppressed. Captain Chun became the first admiral of the Confederation. Defense Force. His job wasn't to conquer new worlds, but to protect the freedom of all species. The ships under his command came from dozens of different worlds, crewed by beings who had once been enemies. Dr. Wright was chosen to head the new Galactic Research Initiative. For the first time in millennia, scientists could study whatever they wanted without fear of government interference. The technological advances that followed transformed the galaxy within a decade. Sarah Kim left her mining job to become the Confederation's first Director of Economic Development. She worked to make sure that no species would ever again be forced to give up their resources to feed an oppressive system. But perhaps the most important change was the simplest one. Children across the galaxy could now learn about their own heritage. They could sing the songs of their ancestors. They could tell the stories that made them who they were. The galaxy discovered something wonderful. Diversity made them stronger, not weaker. A year after the Council's fall, Elena Vasquez stood in the same chamber where she had once begged for basic human rights. But now it was different. The cold, empty seats were filled with representatives who actually listened to each other. The atmosphere of fear had been replaced with hope. She was no longer an ambassador pleading for her people's survival. She was the first elected president of the Galactic Confederation, chosen by free beings to represent their common interests. In her inaugural address, she spoke words that were broadcast to every world in the galaxy. For too long, this galaxy lived in fear. Fear of those who were different. Fear of new ideas. Fear of change itself. That age is over. Today, we begin something new. Today, we choose freedom. The response was immediate. Across the galaxy, beings of every species cheered. Not because a human was speaking, but because someone was finally speaking for all of them. The transformation wasn't complete overnight. There were still conflicts to resolve, wounds to heal, injustices to correct. Some species struggled to adapt to freedom after millennia of oppression. Others had to learn that their old privileges were gone forever. But for the first time in galactic history, these problems were being solved by cooperation instead of force, by discussion instead of decree, by choice instead of compulsion. 10 years later, Ambassador Vasquez, now former President Vasquez, having served her term and stepped down as democracy demanded, stood on the observation deck of a new kind of vessel. The ship Exploration was the first joint species colony vessel, carrying volunteers from 50 different worlds to establish a new settlement on the galaxy's frontier. Humans worked alongside Tyranny engineers and Centauri navigators. Former Council species shared technology with former rebel worlds. They were going to build something that had never existed, a truly integrated multi-species society. "Do you think it will work?" asked Dr. Wright, who stood beside her watching the stars. Vasquez smiled. "I think we'll find out." That's what freedom means, the right to try, even if we might fail. Behind them, the diverse crew of the exploration worked together to prepare for their journey. Children played games in a dozen different languages. Artists from various worlds collaborated on new forms of beauty. Scientists shared discoveries that would benefit everyone. As the ship prepared to jump to hyperspace, Vasquez thought about the long journey that had brought them here, about the Council's arrogance, about humanity's patience running out, about the choice to fight for freedom rather than accept oppression. The Council had been right about one thing: humans were dangerous. Not because they were violent or aggressive, but because they carried something that tyrants feared more than any weapon. They carried the idea that all beings deserved to be free. And once that idea was loose in the galaxy, nothing could stop it from spreading. The ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying its diverse crew toward a new world and a new future. Behind them, the galaxy continued its transformation from a prison into a community. The Council had thought they could break humanity's spirit. Instead, they had awakened something far more: